Hey there, welcome back. Brent here again. This time I'm going to give you a little bit of a tutorial on how to make a triptych with your Canon or Epson printer. So this comes as a request from someone in my print course. So if you've not heard of my print course yet, just take a look at my website. I'll put a little link right there. Take a look at my website. I've got a thing about taking you all the way through the whole print process from beginning to end. Now let's dive right in and let's see what it takes to get a nice triptych from your images. First off, what is a triptych? Well, we're taking one image and we're going to split it into 3 different panels, and we're going to then, display those on our wall as a single image, but then maybe they're separated by a few inches, maybe they're a little bit bigger, just depending on what the size is. The request that I had was specifically about making a 13 by 19 triptych. So 3 panels that are 13 by 19 each, and that's what we're going to do today. Let's get to Photoshop and hop right in. Well, in reality, we're starting in Lightroom, and what I did here, I have this image from Banff National Park area, and so I've got this that is pretty much the same exact almost the same exact, what do we call it, the aspect ratio for that panoramic. That idea of 3 vertical images that are 13 by 19 tall, but of course it's then panoramic 3 times. So here I've clicked on the crop tool and we can see these crop overlays. So roughly speaking, each one of these items would be a 13 by 19 print. But now we need to get into Photoshop and start talking about the magic of how this would all be brought together. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this and I'm going to say edit in Photoshop. I'm going to pretend all of these settings, develop settings, etc., all those are perfect for printing. I haven't double checked them with that idea, that little mind for printing or what have you. But for the cases of what we're dealing with here, we're going to pretend that those are all perfect for printing. Here we are in Photoshop, and let's take a quick look at this image with what it came in on the image size. We're just going to, we know it's not going to be perfect, anything close to what we need it to be, I'm sure. So let's take a look at the inches, since that's going to be something that we are more commonly thinking of. And I'm going to bring my calculator up just to make things a little extra easy. So here we are with the calculator, and so if we have 13 inches and we have 3 panels, we're going to look at making this about 39 inches wide. And so you can see we're really, really close actually to our final dimensions, which is going to be 39 inches wide by 19 inches tall. Now we have another little thing that we need to think about, and that is, what are we going to do with the idea of that little border, that little gap, that little whatever is going to be there? I'm going to assume that the image will go, basically if you were to put those 2 pieces of paper together just perfectly, that the image will go seamlessly right across there. Now we have another issue going on. When we print fully borderless with that printer, whether it's the Canon Pixma Pro 10, the Pixma Pro 100, any of your 13 by 19 printers that will print borderless, well, any printer that prints borderless, the printer, what it's going to do, it's going to actually slightly expand that image. And usually it does it by about 1/4 of an inch in total in each dimension. So the width and the height both get expanded about 1/4 of an inch. I've taken a look at this on my Epson. I know for sure it's 0.24 inches on the Epson. I have yet to see the exact sizes. We can probably look at that when we get into the print dialog box, but we're going to assume it's about 1/4 of an inch. And so the reason why that's important is maybe we want that to be an overlap. So when we bring those 2 items together, if this one is expanded 1/4 of an inch, well, that means it's going to creep into what this over here is. And so we need to take that calculation into account when we make these prints. So I'm going to add that 1/4 of an inch. Now that's an 1/8 of an inch border. So 1/8 of an inch on this side, 1/8 of an inch on this side, 1/8 of an inch top, 1/8 of an inch bottom. In total, that's 1/4 of an inch both directions. And so when we do that, we're then able to get that size really, really, really close to what we need. And we know then that a little bit of that image is going to be cropped off in the print process. So let's take a look now at what we're going to do with our specific sizing requirements when it comes to getting this figured out as far as our sizing is concerned. So we know that our height is going to simply be 19 1/4 inches because there's nothing we have to do there. We're not going across the frame with that. What we are going across the frame is those 13 inch items. So here we are, we're going to be 13.25, and we multiply that by 3, and then we have 39.75 inches. Well, here comes some other, thought processes to the whole thing. If we're going to have a 1/4 of an inch, let's get on the crop tool here, and let's just get this, we'll call it original ratio. And so here we have our overlays here. All right. So if this is going to be 13.25 inches, and this is going to be 13.25 inches, well, what we're doing here is we're taking this part and we're going to, what ends up happening in the very, very end, this is where it gets a little confusing, because out to here is 13.25. And so when it prints on paper, we're going to take this part between here and here. I'll zoom in even more. It'll take this amount here, roughly 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to say that part is going to be cropped off, and then this part is going to be cropped off. So in reality, what we need to end up doing is we need to take out about 1/4 of an inch in total, because one of those frames needs to be effectively removed. That gap needs to be removed. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated in the thinking process. But this is what's going to give us a perfect transition, from as perfect as we can get, from one to the next. So when we go to our calculator, all we need to do, if we're going to remove one of these ideas here where we're going to overlay in the middle, we just need to remove one of those items, so minus 0.25. And so we have 13 inches and the extra bleed, if you want to call it that, 13 inches over here in the extra bleed, and then 13 inches purely here. Now we're going to get the extra as we bleed it, as it were, but we're not going to worry about it when it comes to sizing everything or beyond this. So what I'm saying is go ahead and measure it out at 39.5 by 19.25 tall, and that's what we want it to be. So when we're up here in our width times height times resolution, we're going to take this and we're going to go 39.5 inches, and then we're going to say 19.25 inches, and then we're going to do our 240 pixels per inch, and then we can click this around and do whatever we want it to do. Now your image may be a little bit wider in scope, maybe it's a little taller in scope, and you just have to get a crop that works for you, but these are the dimensions that I'm going to recommend looking at when it comes to printing borderless. So let's take a look now. Let's go ahead and take these changes, and now it's sized physically right. Now let's get to the print process and see what happens to make this get out on paper. All right, so here comes the beauty of the simplicity of working with a single file, because we could have split this into 3 different files and printed them separately, but we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take this. Now, of course, I have the Pro 10. You may have the Pro 100, you may have something else. Whatever the case is for you, obviously select that, select your Photoshop Manager's colors, select your item for your print profile, your paper profile for that printer. We'll pretend it's going on this paper. And I'm going to jump into my print settings here, and this is where I'm going to choose my paper size. And so we're going to go up here to this 13 by 19 borderless, all right? And then we're going to make sure we select our quality and media, and for that particular paper, semi-gloss is where we want to be. So we're pretty good. If we were to, crop it this way, we know that's wrong, so this is the proper crop. Now, as we go down here, that scrolls, and we can make this a little bit bigger as well. So our scale, we want to leave this as 100%, because what this should do for us, this should be able to take into account what's happening when we are going borderless. It'll shift it where it needs to shift it, whatever you want to call it, and it'll position it properly. Now we do have a little bit of a dotted line going across the top. For now, I'm not going to really worry about that. We'll see what happens with that. But anyway, by keeping this at 100%, it should be able to do what we need it to do. The position, this is the problem here. This is where we want to, sure, get one that's centered. We obviously need that. But now what we're going to need to do is move this to 0 and get one printed there. So when you move this to 0, and this, of course, is at the negative, this is roughly 1/8 of an inch, not quite, just barely shy of 1/8 of an inch, but 0.125, by the way, is 1/8 of an inch. So we're able to, if you wanted to, I guess you could say negative 0.125 there, and then we know it's perfectly aligned according to the measurement that we gave it, but whatever. Then we're at 13 inches, or 0 inches here, I should say. And let's actually make that negative 0.125. And when we have that, then we have the extra space that we know we need. And then when you have that centered, you would modify this again. If you were to have changed it, you want to modify it so it's the exact same amount as the other one that you just printed. And then the 13, so that dimension, whatever that is, so you print that, and then you get that out, and then you do another one, and then you can actually just click and drag this, and whatever that value is going to be. So 13.25 times 2, basically, or 13.25 plus 13 should give us 26.25. And so let's see if we can put that in there and see if that makes sense for us. So again, my negative 1/8 of an inch, if I can type that in properly, that would be better. There it is, negative 1/8 of an inch, and then our negative 26.25. Now let's see how that did for us. Now here's our little transition point there on that mountain. You see that little pixel for that transition point? If I hit center, what I'm looking for is, did that still come visible? It was barely not visible here in this item, and so that's where I think our numbers is pretty good. Probably close enough for what we're trying to accomplish here. But it's nice that it gives us this visual too, so we can just kind of double check ourselves and see how it's going along. Negative 26 1/8 maybe is where we truly need to be. See, so that's where we get that little bit of the coming over the crest of that little lip there. And now when I hit the center, watch this as it comes over. Perfect. That is just absolute perfect alignment. So we'll again do negative 0.125, excuse me. Then we'll do negative 13.125 on the negative, 26. And then that would be a perfect measurement, and you've got just the right amount of extra information that you need for the printer to go ahead and overprint, so it guarantees that you get that borderless print option going. So you hit print those 3 times, you get those 3 different panels, and you've got them ready to go on your wall. Of course, mounting is a whole nother ball of wax that we got to deal with. Are you going to flush mount them on foam core? Are you going to put them in an overall mat and get them arranged in a single mat? Then that goes on the wall all by itself. That would be a huge mat, but it'd be beautiful, I'm sure. If that's the case, you have more of that overlap kind of that's going to happen. Most people will not care one bit if you're overlapping and cropping out 1/8 of an inch on each image, because you do want that overlap if you're matting the image. But there's other ways, just otherwise tacking it up there for just a proof or whatever the case might be. Whatever your mounting options are, that's basically up to you, but this is how to make it happen in Photoshop and working through with the printer to get that coming out. I hope that was helpful to you, and let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know if you have any other further thoughts along these lines. I would love to be able to help you out further. And thank you to my student in the online print course for putting this request out there. Always happy to provide that extra information that people are interested in. And until next time, happy shooting.